But the first story wants to explain the essence of the human condition. As he said, it is the very essence of our inward state. The word he actually used, the word for marrow, like bone marrow. It's the marrow of our inner state. And so what is this story? I'm just going to summarize it and then we'll talk about the symbolism. Okay, so while you're listening, know that what the story is about outwardly is all symbolism of the human condition. So you can try to think of what represents what, inshallah. So the story is that there was a great king. And Maulana says, in olden time there was a king to whom belonged the power temporal and also the power spiritual. And so this king goes out hunting one day. And as he's traveling through the land, he spies a handmaiden. A handmaiden, and he falls in love with her instantly. Love at first sight. And he purchases her. And he takes her back to his kingdom. But immediately she falls ill. She falls ill, and she falls so ill that each day she gets more sick, and it appears that she may even die. And because he loves her so much, he's deeply distraught by this, and so he calls the best physicians in the land to come heal her. And they all come, and he says, please heal her. Not only her life is in your hands, but my life is in your hands. Because if she dies, I might as well die as well. And the physicians say, we will heal her. We're the best physicians. But then Rumi says, but they didn't say, inshallah. And then he says beautifully, he says, I don't just mean the words, inshallah. I mean the reality, inshallah. The reality of knowing that everything is by and from God. Meaning they thought they were doing it by themselves. And so every medicine they gave her made her more sick. Made her more sick. And so the king became more and more worried, and he started to feel there was no one else he could turn. And so he runs to the mosque. He runs to the mosque and he falls prostrate in prayer, and he starts to weep to Allah, asking him to heal her. And Rumi says he wept until his prayer mat was soaking wet. Right? This profound image of just burning grief, nowhere else to turn. And he's praying so sincerely that he just becomes physically exhausted, and he falls asleep there on his prayer mat. And he has a dream. And in the dream, this great sage comes and says to him, I will come tomorrow and I will heal her. And he wakes up and he knows this is a true dream. Right? Some dreams we have, they're just, who knows what they are, but some dreams you have and you know that was from a higher level of inspiration. That was a true dream. We know by how it feels, there's this impact that it has on us. And he knew that. So he went to his castle and he looked for when this sage would come. And when he sees him coming, he runs out to meet him, barefoot, right? Humility, not even sending his courtiers or his army. He meets him himself and he embraces him. And they have this beautiful meeting, this spiritual meeting. And actually there's a line where he says, you're my beloved, not her. Like he kind of has this realization, wait a second. But anyway, this is just a momentary kind of intuition that he starts to have. And then this sage says, and Rumi calls him the spiritual physician, the spiritual physician, the spiritual healer. He says, take me to this girl. And so he goes and he says, remove everyone from the room so it's just empty and I may be alone with her. And so he goes to her and he starts to take her pulse. And he sees she's very weak and very ill. And then he just talks to her gently. And he says, where are you from? And where is your family from? And what is your name? And what do you do? And how have you been? And she starts to tell him. And he sees no pulse change. And then he said, well, where were you before? And she said, first I was in this town and I had this master. And then I was in this town and I had this master. And nothing changes. And then keeps going until finally she says, and before that I was in Samarkand. Samarkand. He notices the pulse change. He says, okay, tell me about Samarkand. Oh, this was what I was doing, this is what I was doing, this is what I... Eventually, he says, and where did you used to go? And basically, he's leading her to what is really the root of her ailment. And through this, he finds that she was in love. She is in love with a goldsmith in Samarkand. And he understands that her ailment is heart sickness. It's not physical. That's why they tried to heal the physical. They could not do anything because it's a spiritual ailment that she had. And so he goes to the king and he says, he doesn't tell him why, but he says, you must bring the goldsmith from Samarkand and shower on him riches and tell him to come. So he brings him and then he unites them. He weds them, the girl and the goldsmith, and she comes back to health. And for some time, she is healthy and she is happy. But then the spiritual physician, he creates a concoction, a potion, that he starts giving to the goldsmith, slowly, slowly. And this potion starts to make the goldsmith sick. And he starts to lose some of his strength and some of his power and some of his handsomeness. He was very handsome. And all of a sudden, the girl starts to be like, I'm not feeling him as much anymore. Right? His strength is leaving him. His handsomeness is leaving him. Right? The beautiful color in his cheeks is leaving him. He's looking pale. And slowly, slowly he weakens. And slowly, slowly, as he weakens, her love diminishes. And in the end, the spiritual physician kills the goldsmith. Scandalous. You weren't expecting that, huh? I thought he was supposed to be spiritual. And Rumi has a whole section about that. He said, don't judge things by the outward. If you did, you would be like Moses when Khidr did what he did, and you said you would, right? But he said the spiritual physicians, there's something else happening. So anyway, what is he getting at? Because as we said, all of this is symbolic and not related to the outward meaning. So, does anyone care to venture a guess as what the king represents?
I can try.
Bismillah.
I think I have an idea. I think the king represents the creator,
Okay.
God.
Good guess. Anyone else?
Lust.
A lust? What'd you say?
Lust. Lust.
Good guess. Alhamdulillah. So, anyone else? The king comes and he comes into the hunt, and this represents the ruh, the spirit. And this represents the spirit, which is our true nature, which is from the divine breath and is related to the divine, and in fact is a mystery. It is a mystery. And the Quran says, they ask you about the spirit, say the spirit is from the divine command. And you have been given of it knowledge only a little. Or only few have been given a knowledge of it, is another reading of that. And so the spirit is our true nature. The spirit is from the divine breath, and it is our fitrah, our original disposition. But this going on the hunt means it goes on a journey, and it leaves the divine presence and comes into this world. And it spies the handmaiden. What do you think the handmaiden represents?
Us.
Which aspect of us? Because the spirit is also us.
The physical us.
Yes. The nafs. The nafs, and in this part, of course, the nafs has many dimensions and many levels, but particularly in the beginning, it's the nafs in its undisciplined, unrefined state, right? And this is beautiful because if you think about this, our spirit falls in love with our individual selfhood, right? This individual mission that we have in this world, right? And the scholars, some of them, Ibn Arabi talks about that each one of us, when we were in our spiritual realm, that we were asked, or we were actually given the option of our soul's mission in this world. And we accepted, right? To be born in this family, with these circumstances, and these challenges, and these opportunities for the lesson of our soul to learn. And so the spirit actually comes in, and it's happy, it's in love. Because this is a beautiful gift that Allah has given us, this being embodied, being a human being. Right? As the Buddhists say, the priceless opportunity of a human birth. It is. It's a priceless opportunity to be a human being. And so we come into this embodied nature, right? So this embodied nature. But the problem is that our lower self is in love with other than the spirit, isn't it? So what do you think this goldsmith represents?
The world.
Yeah, the world. The dunya, all that glitters. Gold, right? So the lower self is in love with the dunya, and the dunya means the lower world. There are two words in Arabic for the world. There's alim and dunya. Dunya is always negative. Dunya is the illusory world. It is the world that is, to the extent that it's cut off from remembrance of its higher purpose. Alim is positive. It means the world also. But alim, it's actually from the same root as ilm, knowledge. And so the alim is the place of knowledge, the place you attain knowledge, right? And so in the Fatiha, which we recited, Rabbil Alameen, doesn't say Rabbul Dunya. Allah is the Lord of all the worlds. This world is a beautiful place to the extent that we see it as a sign, as a place of attaining knowledge of the divine. But to the extent that we are veiled from that, it becomes a hardship for us. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, this world and everything in it is cursed except for remembrance of God. And that which assists you to remember God, and the teacher and the student. So you could say on the surface of this, it's like walk around, everything is cursed and everything is evil. But if you listen to this, what the Prophet is saying, it's all about us as an individual and our perspective. Because another way of saying is nothing in this world is cursed if you remember Allah by it. It's merely our ability to perceive. Because it's like this, and the Prophet also gave the analogy of a dream, that people are sleeping, when they die, they wake up. If you enter into a dream, but this dream is unique because there is something we're sent into it for. And the way that we are in it impacts our state when we awaken. So if you forget that it's a dream and it becomes everything, and you're trying to amass things in the dream, and right, then when you wake up, what regret you will be filled with. Right? It doesn't matter how many coins you had in the dream. Right? You're collecting coins in the dream, then you wake up, nothing. How much remorse would you be filled with? But if you remember it's a dream, and that this dream is a school that we're teaching and we're learning and we're growing, then every experience becomes blessed, even more difficult experiences. So this is the idea, is that our lower self, it's cut off. It doesn't see the higher purpose, and so it just wants to attain things, and it wants to gather things, and it becomes love with all that's perishing. Now, what do you think the spiritual physician represents? Feel free to just say. Teachers, beautiful. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dhikr, beautiful. All of these meanings are possible, and all of these meanings are true. It could be said that the spiritual physician represents the awakened ones. Of course, chief amongst them, the prophets, peace and blessings be upon them, and their true inheritors. This is a central theme of the Masnavi, is that love is the essence of everything, and the divine reality is love, and the purpose of life is love, and the medicine is love. And that you need someone who has awakened to love to awaken you to love. and the term in Arabic, insan al-kamil, which means a complete human being. Someone who has reached completion, or who has ripened, or who has been cooked. We all have this in potential, but until we reach that state, we've not reached that perfected state or that completed state. And Rumi, the Sufism in general, emphasizes the importance of companionship on the path with those who have progressed, and especially of the masters. May Allah always keep us with them and guide us to them, inshallah. And so, this is what the spiritual physician can represent. Now, it's very interesting, the actual medicine that the spiritual physician gave, because first, what happens? What does the master do? Actually unites the girl with the goatsman. So, and lets them love each other. But then slowly with the potion, teaches them that the true beloved is not what you thought it was. And so what the spiritual master's role is to do is to teach us that what our soul craves is love, is divine love, is eternal love. But the soul that is not yet spiritually mature and has not gone through the path, it mistakes love of the fleeting and the perishing and the finite for love of the infinite and absolute and eternal. And this is all our woes and all our suffering and all our difficulties in life is because of this.